Yes, I'm Astrid, and
I'm Adrienne.
Yes, and as you know now, we are social anthropologists, and for the last 3 years, we have been an integral part of the Secure project, for which this gathering today is the final celebration. And we've been working with cryptographers, engineers, and mathematicians to understand the social implications of cryptographic tools. This has included research within our own group of co-researchers, and beyond at other research institutions, startups, conferences, and more. Some of the terms that were ubiquitous during our field research were, not surprisingly, privacy, secrets, security, and trust.
Right, so cryptographers talk about trust a lot. One cryptographer told me, and here I'll quote, really, no trust. We don't trust. You know, cryptographers are not even willing to trust the NSA. They don't want to trust anybody. You know, like in cryptography, we have these standardized hash functions. We want to be sure that this hash function was not put out by the NSA, who has some backdoors maybe. In crypto, there's a belief that we should not trust anybody. So no trust. At the same time, that's a very specific kind of understanding of trust, and it doesn't necessarily map onto social perceptions. And the same cryptographer also noted to me, and I'll quote, "In my personal life, I'm the opposite. I don't lock my doors. I'm like, my passport is, if I can do the 11111, but today, you know, they're like, that's an invalid password. I trust everybody." The idea of not trusting people as in your own life is very depressing to me. You know, I like to trust people. So we have a little bit of a challenge here. From a mathematical perspective, we're talking about proof, and more specifically, a cryptographic protocol that can be shown to be either perfectly secure or computationally secure. From a philosophical perspective, trust is fundamentally an interpersonal phenomenon. And here we're citing Carolyn McLeod. And from an ethnographic vantage point, trust is and here we'll quote, a disposition, a powerful affect, a stance towards the world expressed in a confident reaching out to others. It is a social orientation towards the future, nurtured by the gradual accumulation of positive experience and sometimes revealed in a leap of faith. And this is Brock Due and Istanis from 2016 that we're citing here. So trust means very different things, clearly, and it also means that we can misunderstand each other. And so we wonder whether this is useful as a shared term. The second issue I want to raise here for now is trust seems to also ask those who are supposed to be protected to give their trust, rather than requiring those with the power to protect to consider what it means to care. And this is in turn an ethical problem.
But why is this a problem? It is a problem because if we have confusion about the definition of trust, then it's difficult to work together on solving problems related to, for instance, surveillance capitalism. Surveillance capitalism, the term coined by Shoshana Zuboff, is a societal problem, not just a technical one. In a Cryptic Commons, we are concerned with how to protect data, because this translates into how to protect citizens and some of their basic rights. There's a growing concern that privacy is under attack and that information about our lives can be used to harm us. Solving this problem requires that different disciplines work together. To work together, we need a shared vocabulary. As we just learned now, trust is a hard term to gather around, with its disparate social and mathematical meanings. So we have a method problem as well, a challenge to working together across disciplines. That is why we want, in addition to trust, introduce a focus and approach to care. We recognize, of course, that care on its own can mean many things, some of them even oppressive. So let's try to add some detail. We take inspiration in approaches to care as they grow out of feminist theory and science and technology studies. So that means that our approach to care is speculative and relational rather than seeking a formal definition. It is also an empirical approach where we seek to identify material and actual manifestations of care or lack thereof. It also means attention to the more than human relations and networks, as well as the human ones. So in essence, it also seeks to identify a gap or a critique. In practice, and more methodologically speaking, our thinking and doing with care is based on ethnography. So this means also that we focus on specific community needs. We seek to build up an approach from the bottom up in collaboration with. This line aligns well with the participatory approach just presented. And we also seek to ask what care is in practice in a specific, cultural specific, you might say, context.
So we want to try and unpack why it is that we've identified this as perhaps a way of going about things. I was presented with, and some of you who may have heard this talk before will recognize this slide, I was presented with an idea about this a narrative that perhaps many cryptographers have. And I'm not sure whether that particular cryptographer who presented this specific setup to me is in the audience. Maybe he or she is, but we'll see. So if we start from the top, the crypto narrative, if you will, starts off with primitives, and it focuses on beautiful math, it focuses on theory, and it discusses the challenges between real and ideal problems, and it's all very pure. And if we're going to then implement those protocols, or those primitives, then we move down a step to the engineers and to software. And at this point, from the crypto narrative perspective, it begins to get messy. It's practical. It's not exact. It's certainly not pure. It's not beautiful. And there's a bit of tinkering going on, quite a bit. If we move down one more step, and it is perceived as a step down, as I understand it, then we're moving into policy and law. And there it begins to become very, very political. It's quite messy. And here we're engaging with people who don't have the prerequisites for understanding the mathematical points of departure for the crypto primitives in the first place. And then we get finally down to the bottom. Then we're talking about users and citizens. And the narrative is that they don't get it and they don't use it. And they certainly need education, and that is the way that we could solve the problem. So let me just say that there are certainly really good reasons for organizing work in this way, even though you can sense my criticism in the way I talk about it. And that is because we do need experts. I think we need experts, and we think we need to give them the space to hone their expertise in academic and professional silos. But we must recognize the fact that there's a great distance between those that are developing the crypto primitives and the people that they're supposed to serve all the way down at the bottom. So we're concerned about this distance. So we have for you today an example actually from a paper from an application called Callisto, a cryptographic approach to detecting serial perpetrators of sexual misconduct. So this is obviously a very, very specific community with some very, very specific people who need to be protected. And you can see the authors here. And what we identify in this particular paper is actually an approach that Astrid so clearly mapped out for us. And I can give you, we're calling this operationalizing care. So the first little excerpt that I have from the paper for you is they write, however, roughly 3 out of 4 employees interviewed who experienced harassment never talked about it with a supervisor, manager, or union representative. And the reason why we highlight this particular excerpt is that we can see that from the point of view from the cryptographers who developed the protocol and the program, they actually went about and interviewed people who had been subjected to this treatment. So they really gathered some information about the community that they were trying to protect. The next excerpt that I have for you is actually after the program was then implemented and they used it, and they also did research then afterwards. And they write, studies showed that survivors of sexual assault who used this online platform were 5 times more likely to report incidents than those who did not. So they're finding out how their program works actually in practice. They continue, victims using the platform reported incidents an average of 4 months after the incident, in contrast to an average 11-month delay for victims not using the platform. And again, these are the cryptographers that are doing this research. And the last point is the lessons learned from this campus product demonstrate that reporting an incident of sexual assault was significantly more rapid and likely when victims knew that they were not the only victim of an assailant. And I realize now that I actually hopped over my explanation of how this particular protocol works. What it does is that you're allowed to, you go in and you identify a perpetrator, and if another victim identifies the same perpetrator, then a match is made. And only if you want to be brought into contact with the other victim, you will be connected to them, and you will also be connected to a lawyer that can help you pursue the case. So sorry that I jumped over that. We'll slip on to the next slide here. Go ahead, Astrid.
Yes, well, to sum up, we suggest that by introducing an approach of care, the narrative that Adrienne outlined before is inverted. The methodology, or the protocol, if you like, for practicing care would look something like this. Like, the community is involved, it is specific, identifying vulnerabilities and problems in collaboration, and then go ahead and design and define the technical tools to be used, iterate, try, run, test, pilot, iterate again. And so in sum, it's really like a bottom-up approach. In this way, care can be a term that we use across disciplines, a work in our social mathematical pidgin. And here we understand pidgin to be this kind of vocabulary that can work across disciplines. It is not a full language, but a vernacular language that is useful within a specific practical context.
So thanks for listening.
And
That's the end of our presentation. Thank you.